I'm here with Rich from Death in Vegas. We are backstage at the Electric Ballrooms in Camden. Glorious. There's a bin over there that you can't see, but it's gold. And yeah, this is the last night of your UK tour, I believe.
Yes, indeedy.
How has it been?
It's been fantastic, actually. It's been really good. The dates have been great. The crowds have been really. There's been a lot of love out there, which is good. And yeah, the band's been really kind of coming on form the last few shows. Yeah, I feel like we're kind of back in the driving seat. How are you
feeling about this evening?
Well, I do get quite nervous. I always get nervous, but I think that's a good thing.
Need to care.
Yeah, you know, I think it's quite good to get kind of like a bit edgy, you know. But I am looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to kind of making a beeline out of it, the venue afterwards, and getting home and being boring. Actually, it's a lie. I've got to go down to the studio afterwards. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Good. Now, it has been widely reported that when you first formed, it was Dead Elvis.
That's
I believe.
Right. Yeah.
There is a rumour that I'm about to start that Death in Vegas is an homage to Nicolas Cage's performance in Leaving Las Vegas. Would you like to put a stop to this now and tell us what it is?
Dead Elvis was actually a Grail Marcus book, which I'd read a long time ago, and I just had like a name. And Death in Vegas was actually a film a friend of mine made, which was, I think it was Lee Bowery's last film he was in, the performance artist, who played Elvis. It was about Elvis overdosing. And it was called Death in Vegas, and I had 2 days to change the name, because the record label, we were called Dead Elvis, and the record label approached us in Ireland, who had the name already, and they were like, oh, you can't call this that. So I had like a day to change the name, and
Is that?
Yeah, it was one of those ones. I didn't think I'd be doing it 20 years. Note to self.
Yeah, well, your last album was in 2004, I believe.
Yes.
And after that, you said that you felt that it was Death in Vegas was taking over your life. You were doing the music, the artwork, the videos, and you moved to New York. And I believe you studied large format photography for a bit. Is that right?
I dabbled in that, but I did photography generally. Yeah. Yeah. No, I did. I mean, it was really. I mean, I guess I started the band when I was at art school, and being an artist, I kind of, you know, readily jumped into the role of kind of doing the artwork and having a passion for film, wanted to get involved in the videos, which I did, and basically I did start kind of pretty much doing everything. And it took over, and we were doing so much touring, and I just felt like I actually needed a break from music, actually, let alone Death in Vegas. You know, my whole life was about going to the studio, working all day in the studio, and then in the evening getting my records ready for my DJ sets on the weekend, then come the weekend, flying around DJ. It was just like sound, and I felt my ears were just like kind of overloaded, and I needed a break. And you know, and I didn't actually get a music break because I couldn't kind of stop, you know, the urge to be creative. And even though I didn't have access to a studio when I was in America, I guess I had a guitar, and I started playing guitar, and started another band called Black Acid, which is yet to come out actually, although it's mastered, which I think is coming out next year. So yeah, I felt I needed a break, but it was just a break from London, I don't know.
It's necessary sometimes.
Yes.
I feel that. You have also said though that photography, that period of photography influenced this album.
Well, it was more like kind of people have asked, and I was like, well, I never kind of at first was
yeah,
like, yeah, it has,
translate.
but it has. I mean, it has in a way, I think, because the kind of photographers and the kind of photography that I'm into, kind of like quite desolate kind of Americana, desolate American landscape kind of work. You know, to kind of obtain those images, there's a lot of kind of like travelling and a lot of time kind of like on the road, and in those kind of areas, you know, kind of run-down towns and, you know, mining towns and stuff. And, you know, that big sense of space. And I grew up in Africa, and I've always been very comfortable in you know, that kind of
expanse.
Yeah, in a big kind of expanse. I grew up in the desert, you see, so I was like kind of used to that kind of, you know, if you went to the next town, it's like 400 kilometers to the next town kind of thing. And anyway, when I was in America, like one of the best things for me about being in America was actually the landscape and being able to kind of travel and stuff. And I think that sense of space, and also, you know, when I look at the kind of movies and the kind of filmmakers I'm into, which, you know, I do like stuff that's got quite a slow pace, and I think that all definitely affects the music, because with the music, it's, you know, I draw stuff out, and there's a lot of people who've said stuff's quite cinematic over the years, and I think that just comes to a, you know, maybe you get kind of a little bit more kind of confident in your role as a producer, you know, kind of a bit more confident with space, because space is something that's kind of quite, something that you have to be quite careful of in music, because it's very tempting to, I find it quite, I certainly find it very tempting just to kind of layer and layer and layer, because every layer you think you're adding more and more emotion to it, or more feeling, but the reality is it's actually really, you know, some of the best bits of music is when people have been quite brave to strip stuff down, and I guess there's a kind of tie-in with just what's visually kind of stimulating me, and kind of musically, I guess. Maybe.
No, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, no, that makes sense.
But also, yeah, as well. It's like, you know, someone like, okay, you know, there's a certain broken beauty with the music that I try and make, which is kind of like, you know, in this record there's kind of pop element, but there's something that's a little bit wrong in there, and I always don't want stuff to get quite too comfortable. And, you know, I think that's that kind of looking for light in darkness is similar to, you know, some of Diane Arbus's work, you know, it's like who kind of, you know, that broken beauty, you know, seeing a beautiful side in something that conventional people might see as quite ugly, I guess.
No, that's nice. I was going to use a wanky French term there, but I've restrained myself. The new album, Translove Energies, I believe was originally an MC5 commune? Is that
That's
correct?
right, it was a commune settlement in Sinclair for the MC5 in Ann Arbor, which is near to where I've been mixing records for the last 7 years, and spending quite a bit of time in that area of Michigan. A friend of mine's got Sly Stone's old console, which I mixed this record on, and spent quite a bit of time in that area. And there's this thing I was doing remixes under this other name, like a Caesar name that was related to that, and it was just kind of a tie-in. I'm a big MC5 fan, but then like when you hear a name and the name starts to become something else to you, and I had this idea about the artwork, about this kind of desolate landscape, and something that was slightly in the futuristic. If you look at the CD covers, not the actual CDs, there's like this futuristic design and then this other world, and then with escapism and the cave and the two people and the, you know, the guitar signifying music and love, and it's about a kind of desolate landscape and, you know, the power of love, I guess, is supposed to be what I was going for with the artwork and the Translove Energies and the whole meaning. It became something else, you know. I think names, you can kind of, you get a name in your head and it kind of sticks, and it can kind of like interpret it anything you want, really, can't you?
Was Black Acid, you say you picked up the guitar for the first time, and you've been singing on this?
Well, I started, I was having a bit of a rough ride at the time in a certain period of my life, and the way of kind of dealing with it was I kind of decided was rather than doing it in other ways, I would try and write about it. So I kind of started writing these songs that kind of meant quite a lot to me emotionally at the time. And my plan was actually I was going to get someone else to sing them, but I struggled for ages writing lyrics, and then when I started to write lyrics that were really honest, like really super honest, and I think at that point I was like, this isn't really kind of right because I was like, someone else can sing them much better, but no one's going to sing them with the same amount of emotion like meaning in the words. And whenever I'm working with singers, like that's one of the big thing what I try and get at. But you know, someone have an amazing voice, but if someone, you know, I've got tapes of this guy singing in a mental hospital, can't even really sing, but he's singing with such passion. And if you can, you know, if you can believe what someone's kind of actually coming out of them, I think that can have so much more power than just a straight up, great, fantastic voice. So it seems a bit weird to get someone else in, and I guess I just had to stab at doing it myself, and got a little bit of encouragement from the people around me. But the plan wasn't to do it with Death in Vegas. I was actually planning to work with other singers, but I think their starting point was the first track on the album, Black Hole. I'd actually written that. I sent it to Jamie from the Kills, actually.
Yeah, I saw
and he really was into it. He loved the song, really wanted to do it. And anyway, he had this little wedding to plan. And one thing led to another, and I just knew he wasn't going to be ready in time, and I had the mixed date, so I was like, alright, he might not be ready in time, I'll write some lyrics. And I went to anyone I've written these lyrics. And I went to them the first day, and I did that track. I did it about 2 o'clock in the morning, had a few beers, really stoned, and went in and did it. And the reaction from the engineer, who I was working with in Michigan, was really, really positive, and his wife, and Travis, my brother-in-law, who was out there with me. And then I think after that, it just gave me a confidence that I was like, you know what, I'll do it myself. And I think I was quite kind of reluctant to do it because I was quite nervous about. I was really setting myself up because I was, you know, doing a record without my old engineer partner. I was going to be singing on it. There weren't any guests, and it's like really, I was putting myself in a position where I could, you know, I was going to really take the flak on this one. So I think there was maybe a little apprehension about that. But I'm glad I did it because, you know, that's half the reason I stopped the band in the first place, was that it was very difficult to tour without all these people, and I felt that the vocalists kind of overshadowed the music.
I forgot what I was going to say then, because I started thinking about something else then.
So that's about 20 questions.
What was I going to say? I can't remember. So, the first time singing with Death in Vegas, singing in a studio is obviously a completely different experience to performing live.
Yeah.
How did it differ for you? And do you have one you prefer?
Yeah, I'm kind of really weird. Like to sing on the. I kind of have to be in a weird position. I have to be like you know, my own, blah, 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 in the right situation. And live is obviously, it's weird. Like I find it more nerve-wracking doing a sound check than I do doing a gig. Maybe because there's just a couple of people.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I kind of get a bit more pumped up into the gigs. But I don't say it's a necessary role that I absolutely love. I'm just kind of glad that I stepped into it for all those reasons I was going on about.
Good stuff.
Yeah, right now.